Okay, so I think now most people are already with us. Okay, can you all hear me, please? Do we have sound with everything? Mostly yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear some yeses. That's good. That's encouraging. Let's now, while we're waiting for everybody else to join in, maybe we should just make a start. I am a little bit perplexed over how to make this work, because I mean the way I access our rooms, I go to the Teams app, and then that has on the left bar it has activity, chat, and then it has Teams. And I click on the Teams, and from there I see the I see the energy decarbonization team, and I click on it, and then there's a general channel which I'm joining every time. Maybe that's not the correct way, to be honest. Maybe I shouldn't be doing it like that, and maybe this is causing extra confusion for everyone. But yeah, I'm not quite sure of how else to do that. So, Laura, yes, thank you for the reminder. I will do that.
Okay, one issue is that there is one link posted on the course page, and there's another link floating around. So I think one of the issues is there's two links. So some people are going into one classroom. That's what happened to me yesterday, and then some people are going into this one.
Okay, can I check with you? So is the meeting we're now in? Is it the one that is linked on the page, or is it a different one?
Not in my experience. What I clicked on yesterday led me to a different one, and then you sent me the correct link via email.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe this is what's causing all the problem. Okay, I see.
There were about 20 people in the other classroom yesterday with me, so it wasn't just an isolated problem. I think it was...
No, sure, makes sense, yeah. Okay, so maybe that is the source of the problem then. Okay, I see. So what we'll need to do, let me start the recording anyway, because somebody reminded me. So that's already on for, I think it is recording. Yeah, it is. So the only thing that I'll need to make sure about is that if that's okay for everyone, that we're following this link that we're now in. But hopefully the word will spread around as we progress with this. As I can see now, I don't know if I get that correctly anyway. There's almost nobody. There are just 5 people in the other room. And I don't know why they're not joining us here, because the link has been posted there a couple of times already, so there's no good reason why not. Anyway, what I'll do is let's start already here, and we'll make some progress. So let's not delay the start of the class any further. It's now the academic quarter has passed. We have to begin. So, hello everyone, welcome back. So we'll do a couple of things today. So one is to follow up from where we left things on Monday during the first class, when we're looking a little bit towards the international arena of energy issues. So we'll begin from that. And the other thing I've promised I'll do today is share with you the coursework brief. So some of you, roughly 24 of you, have already dropped me an email to book specific countries and specific types of energy that you want to work on for your coursework. So thank you for already being quite fast with this. Like I told you earlier, it is a matter of finding the right balance. I mean, the timing is about finding the right balance between rushing to book a country and type of energy that you want to work on, but at the same time, I'd also say there's no need to rush. because it's a good idea to have a little bit of time to look at the data, look what's available before you book a country. So yeah, it's a little bit of balancing these two out. But we'll get through the coursework today. I'll explain to you what is required. So hopefully that should set us all to a good start and give you a little bit more input into what might be needed in terms of data and so on. But it is my intention that we'll carry on talking about it as we progress in the next weeks. So you have a chance, take a look at it, think a bit about it, keep building your case, then come back with questions. So we can make sure we follow up with that. And it's a useful learning process for every one of you. It's not just an assessment, really. It is part of your learning. So let's think now a little bit in how to begin. Should we maybe begin with me sharing my slides like I should? So yesterday, so you're not seeing my slides right now. Let me see if I can do what I've done yesterday, which was this one. Can you see my slides now or not really?
Yes.
Yes.
I can.
You can today. Okay. Is there anybody that cannot see my slides?
I cannot.
I cannot
see your slides.
I cannot.
I cannot either.
So can I see a little bit of raised hands from those of you who cannot see my slides? Okay, quite a few. Okay, many of you. Okay. Okay, so it's like half the class cannot see my slides and the other half can. What's going on with this thing? Okay, so and those of you who cannot, you literally see nothing. You just see my face talking.
I see a blank page, just a blank page, black.
Yes, a black screen.
Right, okay.
Me too.
Okay. And are you all logged in with your UNIBO account?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand why it works for some of you and why it doesn't work for some others. It's really weird.
This makes little sense because I had the black screen yesterday and now I can see the slides. So there's no pattern to it.
Right, okay, so it's quite random then. Okay, it's not even specific to your computer or something like that. Okay. Okay then, so let's find a better way than that. Hopefully all of you can see the slides, because otherwise it's a bit silly. I mean, it's important that all of you can see. I mean, this platform that I have now is actually better because normally it allows me, to use the slides and mark stuff and do things like that. Mess up with my slides and so on. So those of you can see them now. I'm just making funny pictures on my slides and so on. So. It's a shame that we cannot use it, but the next alternative is that I go and share my screen. So that would be done by doing it would be here. Probably now you can all see my slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yesterday I was working universally with all of you. Okay. Okay, probably it's some weird Microsoft Teams problem, who knows. So yesterday we kind of dropped it. Sorry, say again? Did somebody say something? No. No, okay. So let's crack on then with what we have today. So yesterday we went through those graphs and we kind of saw a little bit what's happening with global energy resources balances, particularly oil, gas, and coal, and that's where we kind of stopped it. There were a couple of things that I meant to say yesterday, and that was with these two graphs. And these things were really, let me just bring this to a bigger picture. Here you go. And these things were essentially to show you a little bit what the energy consumption mix looks like globally, I mean, across regions. And the next one will be what the electricity mix looks like across regions. So here in the first one, this is the energy consumption. So when I say energy, think of it as pretty much everything. It's not just electricity, it's also the systems that are used in the industry, energy systems that are used, for transportation or for heating and so on. Yeah, it goes beyond electricity. And here you can see what that looks like. And the green color is oil. So oil remains a very significant energy resource around the world, and pretty much that's for every region. Yes, if you see even relatively, one would say, decarbonized regions, say Europe, for example. I mean, it's not decarbonized by any means, but it has made significant steps into this direction. Rely quite significantly on oil. Of course, regions like like the Middle East, for example, rely even more on oil, obviously because there's an abundance of it. But it is really the case for pretty much across the board. All regions have a very significant amount of oil, almost a third for most regions in the total energy consumption. Now, what kind of uses do we normally have for oil? Would you have any guesses from your normal experience? What is it that we normally use oil as a resource?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Sure, yes. I was asking, in what kind of uses do we normally have oil?
Plastic production.
Okay, say it again. I've missed that.
Plastic production.
Plastic production. Okay, so chemical uses. Okay, I would say here the graphs you see have nothing to do with non-energy uses. So these are all energy only. You're absolutely right that oil, about a third of the oil, if I remember correctly, is going into non-energy uses, which is predominantly what you said. It's predominantly industrial stuff like plastics production and fertilizers and so on. But for now, let's focus only on energy uses. So where is it that we use oil?
For gasoline?
Let's see. Let's go again one by one.
Transportation.
Transportation. Somebody else?
So gasoline?
Okay, so that's part of the transportation, right? So we refine it and we produce gasoline and other refinery products, which we then, use for transportation. Others?
And we can say even that.
Heating.
Yeah.
Somebody said heating.
Yeah, we use oil and derivatives to extract like everything with I don't know, steam. So to extract even renewables, I can say. So all kinds of energy, like electricity.
What do we do? Sorry, say that again. I've missed that. To extract renewables from oil.
It's like I don't know, for electricity, for example. We can use oil to I don't know, make some machines work to extract, so to produce electricity.
Okay. So you mean for industrial processes that might be producing everything?
Yes.
Yeah. Even to be producing, even solar panels, for example.
Yes. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Correct. So we use it for plenty of industrial activities, yes. Other things, someone said heating, so we said transport. So these are the main areas where oil is used. Yeah, there is a lot less oil in electricity. But in pretty much every other sector, I would say, starting from transportation as the most important one, oil is pretty dominant. Can you still see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Yes.
Good. So I'm just checking because I'm traumatized by how this thing works. So what is the next very popular type of energy here in this graph? So oil is the green one. What is the next one that is very popular?
Natural gas.
Correct. It's the red one, which is natural gas. And if you see carefully, for most countries, the combination of oil and natural gas makes for about, something around 2/3 to even more, to almost all of it, all of the energy consumption. So particularly areas like, I'm thinking Middle East, where obviously there is abundance of resource of oil and natural gas, that's really all they use, yeah? And in other areas, like in the Asia Pacific, you have the minimum, which is about 1/3 of the total. That just reflects the fact that there is no natural gas in that region and no indigenous oil in that region. But other than that, there's a lot of it. Where do we use natural gas? What are the normal uses for natural gas?
Heating and cooking, maybe.
So we use a lot of it for heating. We use a lot of it for cooking, like for domestic activities, really, in that sense. What else? Is there anything else we use gas for?
For cars, transportations.
So some transportation. It's not very big in transportation, but it does exist. What else did you guys say?
Electricity generation.
There's a fair amount of electricity generation, it's true. That is quite big in some parts of the world. We use a lot of gas. Did anybody else say something else?
I mean, there are a ton of industrial applications for natural gas. I don't know if we are considering that here.
Yeah, of course. So there's a significant number of industrial processes which can only run effectively with natural gas. Yeah. So I'm thinking now, production of fertilizers, for example, is a lot easier with natural gas than with any other fossil fuel. Or I'm thinking now things like, some people will produce hydrogen with natural gas, what we call the blue hydrogen. We'll go through that later on. I don't want to bother you with this right now. But a lot of that is being produced through natural gas. And of course, in many parts of the world, lots of industrial processes over the past roughly 20 years, 30 years have been converted from oil to natural gas. Yeah. So wherever there was energy needs present, and these were in the past covered by heavy oil, these have gradually been converted to natural gas as soon as gas became abundant in some regions. So that's what you get there. What is the next one? So you see here, it's oil, it's natural gas. What's the next type of energy that you see being very popular?
Coal.
Yeah, it's that grey part which is coal, and that really concludes, let's say, the three types of fossil fuels that you have in this mix. And there's no doubt at that point that when you include coal, then for most regions you're having almost, pretty much all of the energy in that region being covered. So it makes for a very depressing picture to think that all of that segment is essentially covered by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are pretty big in energy supply across the world, in pretty much all the regions. If you count for it, it's probably around 75 to 80% or more in most regions is covered by fossil fuels. So it doesn't look very good. If you're thinking of decarbonizing the economy, if you're thinking of moving to what we call, net zero, so to actually zero emissions, we need to get rid of a very significant amount of fossil fuels. It's not a trivial task. Oops, my camera fell down. So it's just to show you a little bit what's happening in the bigger picture, which is, all energy types included. And then there are other types of energy here, which you can see, like the renewables and hydroelectricity and nuclear. And these are clustered a little bit, at the top of these graphs. But in nearly all cases, they have a much, much smaller role to play. Yeah. Now, from that, I will move you to a different graph, which looks similar, but it's not the same. So the next graph will show you not the total energy, but the electricity mix only. Yes, so let's take a look at that. Here it is. So here you can see what's happening only with the electricity generation mix by source and by region. So let's see how electricity is being produced globally. So here you see, first thing, which is a very significant difference from what we saw before, is that oil has a way, way smaller part to play. Yeah, so oil, apart from the Middle East and a little bit of Central and South America and a little bit of Africa, oil is very, very small. It's almost minuscule in most regions. So that's to say, in most developed parts of the world, where there isn't an abundance of oil, like there is in the Middle East, for example, we don't really use oil for electricity. Yeah, that's one thing. It's not a preferable fuel. Then, moving on from that, what is the fuel that is actually most popular? Just judging it by color, yeah, don't try to make numbers out.
Natural gas.
Yeah, natural gas is pretty big. So you see natural gas having a very big share in the Middle East, in Commonwealth of former USSR countries, in Africa, in North America. These are the regions that are really championing gas for electricity generation. These are typically regions that have quite a good access to natural gas. Yeah, so Middle East has a good access to natural gas. They use a lot of it because they have it. It's essentially a byproduct of oil production. In the past, natural gas was almost an irrelevant resource. Nobody cared about it in the Middle East. They were just flaring it. And they still do. There's a lot of natural gas in the Middle East, which is actually flared. It's just burned for fun, because they have nothing to do with it. But yeah, there is plenty of it, can be used easily for electricity generation. After gas, what else do you see being relatively big?
Coal?
Yeah, depending on the region, coal tends to be quite large. And almost equal to coal, depending again on the region that you're in, is hydropower. So there are regions which seem to be extremely reliant on coal, particularly Asia Pacific. So countries like, the large countries of the Asia Pacific, I'm thinking now predominantly, India, China, Indonesia. These countries use a lot of coal for electricity generation. Coal is a really major resource for them. But then, of course, there is traditional coal in North America, in Europe, in former USSR countries, in Africa. There have been significant investments in coal, particularly, I'd say, in Europe and North America in the past. There is no new coal in the richer countries anymore. It's just gradually legacy coal-fired power stations, which are gradually being shut down. But as you see, they still play a significant role in energy production. And then you have hydro, as I mentioned already, and in some areas hydro is pretty big. So in Central and South America, hydro is enormous. But in other regions as well, in Europe, in North America, you have something about 20%, roughly speaking, of hydro playing a significant role in energy production. And then I've left for last year, apart from nuclear, of course, I've left also the renewables. So you see, if I were to make a quick comment on nuclear, some regions have nuclear, some regions don't. Yeah. So Africa and South and Central America don't really have any significant amount of nuclear. The same goes for Asia. But there are other parts of the world, like North America, like Europe, like former USSR countries, which really use a significant amount of nuclear. And again, in these regions, building new nuclear has been extremely difficult. So we're gradually seeing North America, Europe, former USSR countries reducing the amount of nuclear that they have available. Former USSR countries are actually quite stable, but in Europe and North America, they gradually reduce the nuclear power stations. There are nearly zero new nuclear power stations being built in these areas. So the growth for nuclear is coming particularly from Asia. Yeah. Last one, I'm talking about renewables, where you can see Europe is, among these regions at least here, is the one that relies more than any other region on non-hydroelectric renewables. So just to clarify here, because you're going to be seeing this quite a lot, hydroelectricity is a renewable energy source. It could easily be classified there. The reason why it's not is that traditionally hydro has existed, for a very long time, has coexisted with fossil fuels, and in many ways it has been around before fossil fuels. So lots of the legacy hydropower stations have existed already a century ago, yeah? So they're very old. But as the years progressed and, fossil fuels have become really large, hydro has stopped being the only thing that was out there. And recently we've been having a growth in other renewables, so non-hydro electricity renewables, like wind, like solar, like biomass and others. So that's what you see here, and that's why you see this distinction. It's a very traditionalist distinction that exists. Plus, you don't really see a lot of growth in hydroelectricity anymore. That's mostly old power stations that exist, and they keep being, maintained and carried forward. So that's that. Before I move you on, do you have any observations, any questions for these fuel mixes that you see here, and that we saw before with them, with the general energy graph?
Yeah, Professor, I'd just like to get your opinion on, in the United States, in Latin America, we're seeing actually a lot of hydro shrink because of
environmental disaster sort of issues. It's a good question, and I don't think an easy answer is out there. What we're seeing is that in some regions, exactly as you said, there are significant droughts in areas where we didn't have before, problems with hydro. So in areas like I said, for example, California, we're seeing, the lakes which are in that region, really shrinking insanely much. And that's been a trajectory, for over a few years, and that pretty much threatens hydropower production. And it's not only there, to be honest. It happens, in many other regions where essentially what we used to have as, initial snowpack being created and then gradual feed into lakes for hydro production, that sometimes is now converted by some rapid flash flood events, which cannot really feed into aquifers, to lake reservoirs very well, and they can cause floods instead. So there are problems like that with, let's say, unpredictability of precipitation and water resources. So I wouldn't like to say that that's the end or the beginning of the end for hydro. It looks to me like we're moving into a new state where we might need to understand a little bit better how to collect hydro and how to make it work. The big question for me is whether we'll be able to identify patterns fast enough, and whether those patterns will be actually patterns or completely random events. But whether these events will allow us to make new investment in growing hydro. Because I think the danger with traditional hydro is that we start seeing it, in some regions at least, as a potential hazard. And I don't mean, in cases where there's drought. Probably it's not a hazard, it's just, an unused resource because you don't have enough water to run the hydro turbines. But in many other areas where you have, increased precipitation, and I'm thinking, for example, valleys of the Three Gorges Dam in China here, hydro is gradually being seen not just as a valuable electricity resource and a water management system, but also as a potential for immense disasters. Imagine if some of these dams, suddenly start failing, what kind of floods you would be having there. And we saw a pre-taste of that already a few months ago in China. So it's just a small taste, but it just gives you a glimpse of how things might evolve in the near future in that domain. So it is a concern. I'm not sure where public opinion will take us and where scientific opinion will take us on that. Somebody said that there are some students in the other room waiting for my approval. Here they are. Let me see if I can do that while I talk to you. I've just accepted them. Hopefully it's going to work. So let me get back to our chat if I find the window. Here it is. No, it's not. Here it is. Okay, good. So what then becomes an issue with hydro is I wish that we find a way to resolve hydro problems, because despite its shortcomings as an energy form, I think it's it's probably the only large-scale renewable that can provide very fast response to energy needs and can stabilize production by, say, solar or wind. So I have great hopes there, but let's see if that's going to be the future of hydro, because I see crazy environmental patterns in lots of parts, in many parts of the world, which threaten growth in this domain. We'll see. So any other comments for the graphs we saw or in this conversation?
What is the purple part, like the purple sector, non-renewable energy, like waste? What I saw, I don't know.
Let me see that. Let me go to the slides. Okay, so you're talking about, we're here. Talking about this one. Okay, so okay, so what they have here, am I the correct slide? That's what we're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, okay, so we have the following. So I'm just reading here for everyone. So it's pumped hydro, non-renewable waste, and statistical differences. So statistical differences, forget it. It's just basically only, it's part of the accounting of energy. And that's minuscule. Usually it's about 1% in most cases. The rest of it is pumped hydro. Now, for those of you who are, I mean, does anybody know what pumped hydro is? Maybe somebody wants to explain it instead of me talking all the time. Does anybody know what pumped hydro is? Nobody? Okay, so then I'll say it. So pumped hydro is essentially hydropower, but it's a little bit different than your normal hydropower. So normally with hydropower, what you have is one reservoir of water located somewhere at a relatively high altitude. And then when you need to, you let the water flow down from that reservoir through some turbines, and these turbines produce electricity. Pumped hydro does that, but it also does the opposite. So it also has a lower level reservoir. So there are essentially two reservoirs of water. One is at a low altitude and the other is at a higher altitude. And what you do with that is that when you have an abundance of energy, a surplus of energy production because of some other systems of energy that you have available, then you charge your reservoir. So you pump water from the lower reservoir all the way to the upper reservoir. And why would you do that? Because then it's essentially like you're charging your energy system and you're making it potentially available for when you need the energy. This happens increasingly much at times where, for example, you have a lot of wind energy production. So at certain times, the wind energy generation is huge, and we don't actually need that. We don't need that energy. We cannot use it at that time. So that spare, that surplus of energy, we can use it to essentially travel, get some water up in a high reservoir, which we then let flow down when we need the energy. Does that make sense? What is pumped hydro? In principle, it's like a giant battery, but with water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's one of the most promising large-scale energy storage technologies that we have, and it helps a lot. I mean, every country that has a lot of pumped hydro can really accommodate a lot of intermittent renewables, a lot of wind, a lot of solar, because it can balance out their output with systems like that. So it's quite beneficial. Then you have non-renewable waste, which is a lot less exciting. So in many countries, normal waste, municipal waste or industrial waste is being burned. We use it as a resource that we just burn it and we produce electricity with it. I think in Italy there is a fair amount of that as well, if I remember correctly. But it's prevalent much more than Italy. It's prevalent in countries of Northern Europe and in Scandinavia quite a lot. So that waste is not buried in landfills, but it is burned instead. Yeah. So that heating then we use to produce electricity. Does that make sense? Is it clear now?
Professor, sorry, also biogas production from this kind of waste, I think it can be considered as a part of...
Did you say biogas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, yeah. I mean, there are many, don't get me wrong, there are many ways to treat waste. Usually production of biogas, as we said before, would be happening in landfills. So normally it's through landfills that you try to extract biogas from. It's not always the case, but it's very typically the case. But in some countries, they would separate some waste for what you said, for biogas production, and they would take other waste which is not, let's say, biodegradable. They would take that waste and they would burn it. It's a long conversation over whether that's a good idea or not, but it does happen quite a lot in many countries. Environmentally speaking, it can be a disaster, but generally speaking, waste handling is a disaster, whatever you do with it. There are no easy solutions with it. So that is what that refers to here. As a means of producing electricity, when you burn waste as a way of managing waste. Yeah. So, any other comments on these graphs? No? Okay. So, let us then move on a little bit and go to, I showed you this one yesterday. It was only just to say that electricity is growing because we convert everything to electricity as we go on. But let's move on. So, why is it that I'll be talking so much about electricity as we move on into this module? And there are quite a few reasons. And one is that basically when we talk about electricity, we will probably be making mention and making references to all types of energy. And that is because typically you use every type of primary energy to produce electricity. So that will help us, by focusing on electricity, we will manage to talk and understand a little bit more how pretty much all other energy resources are being used. So that's one of the reasons. The other is that I talk quite a lot about electricity because it has, numerous low carbon options. Yes, so you can produce electricity without emissions. That is the reason. So if we're looking for decarbonizing the economy, it will have to happen through electricity. Anything else is essentially a fallacy when you think of it at large scale. So that's why, again, electricity is my primary focus. And the other one is exactly because it's such a growth area and an area which allows for interesting ideas to flourish. It's an area where I think you have a significant interest as new starters in these domains to go in and do something exciting, do something interesting, whether as part of a large established company or as part of a startup that does crazy interesting things. I'd say it's the energy domain with the highest amount of innovation by far. It's by probably a scale of 1,000 to 1 in any sense of comparison. The amount of money that is invested in energy innovation in electricity. So these are my reasons. Maybe there are even others, but that is really what justifies my thinking in terms of why we're going to be talking so much about electricity. Let me see now, because somewhere here I want us to stop this and start talking about our coursework. Should we talk about our coursework before the break or after the break? Maybe before the break, before you're very tired, because I think after the break you're going to start getting sleepy. So let's maybe do it now. So before I carry on with the slides, should I share with you the brief, the coursework brief? Let me see what's the best way to do that without messing up too much with the system here. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides. That's the easiest way to do that. And then I'm going to find the coursework brief. and I'll share it with you in the chat here. Can I do that? I think I can. Let's see. Here it is. So, can you see the coursework brief in the chat? Actually, is there anybody who cannot see it in the chat?
For some reason, Professor, I completely do not have access to the chat. I don't know why.
Same for me.
Okay.
Oh, really? There's something very wrong with Teams. I don't know if it's me doing something wrong or who knows. Have you got access? Let me see. Is there a better way to do that?
Professor, for me it's like two different. The chat is another on Teams, and our call is somewhere else. So I don't think they are in the.
I wonder.
Yeah, I don't have access to the chat on this call.
Yes, me neither. I don't know why, but.
So does anybody? Can anybody see it? Maybe we should ask the opposite question. Can anybody see it?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I
can see too.
They don't have access to the chat because maybe they haven't subscribed to the channel. Maybe that's the thing.
Okay.
How do you subscribe to the channel?
Yeah, how do you do that? I don't even know myself.
I'm not sure. For me, it happened when I clicked the link on the course website.
Right. God, that's more complicated than I thought, I have to say. Okay, just to make sure that everybody has access to it right now, do you guys have, I don't know, an emailing list or something where I can send it? Do you know?
You can share on the other chat, the initial one that we joined before we moved over to this one.
Okay, let me try that then.
Or Professor, also in Virtuale, maybe.
What's that again?
In Virtuale, in the your page. In the Virtuale.
Oh, good luck with that. No, forget that. That's even more complicated. No. So what I'll do, let me try something else. Let me type something in the other chat. So I'm writing. Can you see this? Can some of you see this? What I've just typed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe if I share it there, maybe you will see it. Let me see if that's gonna work. What is it? Here it is. Okay, so I also shared the coursework in the other chat. Does it appear now? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So between the two places, hopefully you all have access to it. Hopefully. Is there anybody now who doesn't have access to the brief?
I still don't, but in this case, it must be a problem of mine.
No, but let's find a way so that you can have it. So who is that? Who said that?
Michele Danesi.
Okay, Chanel, what can I do? I see your... wait. So if I try to send it... So is there anybody else that doesn't have access to it?
Yeah, actually me neither, for some reason. But maybe someone can send it on WhatsApp. That would be easy.
We'll just do it, so...
Okay, so what I'm doing, I've already started to people that don't have it. So I have, Mr. Danesi, I have your email there. Let me see, go back to the chat. Who else is it that you don't have it? Show me, raise your hand maybe. Maybe then I can see you. Yep, okay.
No, but they just sent it on WhatsApp, so.
You do have it on WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's use that for now to go through the coursework.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that. So I'll open the file also and I will share it on the screen with you. Because I guess if it's on WhatsApp, maybe some of you will have to sit on a very small screen on your phones. So it's a little bit, maybe not that convenient, I imagine. So, let me open it. Here it is for me. And if I go to our chat and share this. Okay, can you all see my screen with the coursework brief?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. So let me take you a little bit through that. So really what this is that we need to put a plan together that helps us show how renewable energy will be developed in the country that you have selected. There are two choices that you need to make in the beginning. One of them is to select a country, and the other is to select a type of renewable energy that you will develop. So I would like to discourage you from doing, general renewables. So doing, a little bit of solar, a little bit of wind, a little bit of biomass, and so on, because then you don't have a lot of opportunity to provide enough depth for these resources. So I want you to focus on only one, because that will allow you to use your 3,000 words to really do something a little bit more significant for the one type of energy that you have to focus on. So let me take you a little bit through the steps. So you will see here, I'm saying that this is an individual task, so each one of you produces one report. You will have a specific country and you have 3,000 words for it. You initially start with a small section where you describe the main energy issues on the country you're talking about. So a little bit of an introduction. Here is the country, here's the amount of energy it uses. Here is the share of renewables. It's big, it's large, it's small, it's whatever it is. Just so, show a little bit that you understand what the status quo is in the specific country you have selected. Don't miss completely, that opportunity. So you start from that. That's your first section. There is no need for, for something like an abstract. So avoid abstracts. That's wasting your word count. And avoid random introductions to tell me what renewable energy sources are and things like that. So don't worry about these things. So things that are generally, general knowledge, don't worry about them. Don't put them in there. I want you to use that report as much as possible to show that you've done a good reading and to show that you have good ideas that you can explain and you can evaluate reasonably. Yes, so don't use it for generalities. I know that might be different sometimes with different professors, but for me that is quite important. So then you start from that, and then you move on to explain. So that's your second section here, where I want you to set out a plan. Yeah, you need a target, and you need a plan to reach that target. So, for example, in your first section, you might find out that the country that you're talking about might be looking to take, I don't know, for example, wind energy from 20% that it is today to 40% in 2030. it might be part of the country's plan, existing plan, because pretty much every country has a renewable energy strategy. So it's good to acknowledge that that strategy exists in the country that you're studying. The strategy is already in place, and then do better. I think there is something more ambitious that can be done, and here is my plan how to achieve it. So I don't think that 40% for wind is good enough, and I propose you can achieve that. So put a number there that is not insane, that is relatively reasonable, to achieve that. So that is what you're required to do at the next section for the rest of your coursework. So does that
on say that I'm focusing on solar, and I set my goal from going to 40 to 60%. Is that only through using solar development, or is that all the whole renewable energy matrix in this state, right? Is that achieved through all forms of renewable, or just the chosen form that I've selected? Okay, so the country that you're focusing on will be probably doing more things than just solar or the type of energy that you've selected. Your job is not to focus on the whole country thing, but to focus on the particular resource you've selected. So that's up to you to explain how that's going to happen. And in your plan, it might happen on the expense of other renewables. That's totally possible. What's also possible is that your target might be actually easier to achieve if you think of the total energy growth, the electricity demand growth that might happen. Yeah, so in most cases, imagine it a little bit like that. Yeah, so take a step back for a second and think that a little bit of what's happening in most countries' electricity sector is going to be an immense growth in electricity demand. Yeah, so as we're moving forward, it's not just a matter of replacing fossil fuels that is driving, new renewables. It's also a matter of shutting down fossil fuels, so shutting down nuclear. So in most of the developed world, we're shutting down and we're reducing nuclear power stations. We're not building new ones. So that's one other driver that makes demand for renewables skyrocket. And the other one is that gradually we're increasing electricity demand. Why is that the case? Because we're electrifying our stuff. We're electrifying transport and we're electrifying heating. So these are significant parts of the total demand. So when these turn from, from fossil fuels to electricity, that means that there's a lot more demand for renewables. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. It doesn't have to happen on the expense of the other necessarily. Does that make any sense, or am I making it more confusing? That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very unlikely that renewables will end up colliding. There are very few countries where that might happen. And even if that happens, to be honest, okay, I think we're not going to get your plan and show it to the Prime Minister. So probably that's okay. We'll find a way to keep things, within reason, to keep them moving. Any questions on what we said so far?
Professor?
Sure.
Can I ask you a question?
Of
if
course.
I want to work about Iran, because most of the references are in the Persian, and I have this opportunity to have this information because my uncle is working in the biggest company about the solar energy. So you think, is it possible that I work on Iran or not? Do you suggest it or not? But all of the references are in the Persians. I have the reports, but all of the reports are in the Persians.
Okay, that's good for me. I don't mind that at all. It's important to say that, I mean, because some of you have contacted me about doing work on countries which I would say maybe they don't have so readily accessible data. Iran is one of them. Others talked to me about, I think it was Pakistan. Somebody mentioned, what else was it? I don't remember now. But in any case, it was countries which they wouldn't be the best at providing international access to their data. My answer is always, if for some reason you have good access, you personally have access to good quality data for these countries, then by all means, go and work for them. I don't think that's a problem. Personally, if you would ask me to find good quality data for Iran, I would probably struggle. I wouldn't find it very easy. I would need somebody from Iran to help me, help me translate, help me, source the right reports and so on. So it wouldn't be particularly easy for me, but that doesn't mean it's difficult for you, because I suppose you, as you said, you have links to the country, not just because you are, I suppose you're Iranian, but also because somebody from your family understands that energy sector, relatively well.
Yeah, exactly. Because the resources that I have, some of them is published on the website of the organization, and some of them I took them from my uncle. So for me, it's really easy to work on it. But I wanted to ask you, because if I want to put the references at the end, so most of the links are going to the website that are in the Persian, and it's not possible to translate them because of that.
What I would ask you to do in this case, so there are two more comments from me on that. So when it comes to referencing, and you're using references which are not directly accessible in English, that's again perfectly fine. We are a very multicultural and very international cohort in here, so that's not something that is problematic. That's the opposite, actually. That's a good thing. It helps us all, learn from each other and hear things and experiences from countries which otherwise we wouldn't have an opportunity to do so. So that's a good thing. So what I would recommend when it comes to references is that you put the original reference and the original link in Farsi. I mean, that's specific for you, for the Iranian case. But if you could translate also the name of the document in the references, that would be really useful.
Okay, I will do this.
Yeah, so you give the original stuff, but you also put a title in English as well. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So then I can easily see what it is, and maybe I will click on it and take a further look with Google Translate and keep fingers crossed that I understand something from it.
There are some references in the English too. I will put them too, because my uncle told me that some of the data they are publishing in some websites, so they know that where the information is published in the English. I can use them too, but most of them are in the Persian. So
okay, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. So that's that. And the other thing is, for some of you that you emailed me, you told me that you want to work on countries where international data is not very easily accessible. When I try to discourage you, that's not really. I mean, I'm keen for you to work on whatever you are interested in and whatever you think will be useful for your careers. But at the same time, I don't want you to struggle with it. I don't want you to end up with a country that you cannot find any data and you have no idea what to do, and you end up on the 10th of December without any piece of coursework. Yeah. So this is why I'm pushing you to do something that is relatively easier to do. This is my main objective here. Make sure that it's useful, make sure it's exciting, make sure it's doable, rather than something that you will be struggling for weeks and weeks to find any data. So that's that. I see there is a comment on the chat by Benedetta which says, sorry if I write, it doesn't work, so if I understand, it's not about planning a transition through on a single resource, but how the increase in the use of the chosen resource can help to it. Yes, Benedetta, this is really well said. It's exactly correct. So it's not about doing the whole transition, so you don't have the Ministry of Energy at your hands. what you have is the division of the Ministry of Energy that oversees solar energy or wind energy or whatever other type of renewable you have selected. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So, any other questions from anyone on the matters we have discussed so far?
Is there any structure for presenting our paper? I mean, the format of the PDF or those things?
So the only thing is, there are very generic instructions I will give you. And I will go back to the coursework brief so we can continue with it. Oops, that's not the one. Wait. I'll try to share it again. Am I sharing still the document?
Yeah, there is the final report that you
Yeah.
how we should
I just don't know where it is on my computer. Okay. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh God. Maybe it is. That's so annoying. I cannot find it now. This, no. Oh dear. Okay. I'll stop sharing it, then I'll start sharing it again. Sorry. I just cannot find it. I have opened 100 windows. I have no idea where it is. So if I go here, coursework brief. Okay, I found it. Here it is. Okay, good. So you can still see it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. So in terms of guidance of what your report should include, the first thing is status quo. So what is happening in the country right now? So what is the starting point in terms of renewables and in terms of policies and targets to achieve in the next period, in the next 10, 20 years? Yeah. So that's the main thing, the first part. And the second part is you set out your own targets and you show how you will reach them. So for me, that's it. No introduction, no conclusion, no abstract. So with that, I would personally be perfectly happy. So let me take you a little bit further down where I say that you're encouraged to use a wide variety of sources. So that includes academic references, but not only academic references. Yes. So I want to encourage you to use all other sources, whatever you think is suitable and it's legitimate and can support your work. So for example, governmental reports is an important part of it. Commercial business reports is another one that you can use. So I want to see a balance between academic literature and other types of what we call gray literature in these domains. So with all of them, make sure you use them to strengthen your argument, strengthen your case. So make sure you reference quite well throughout in order to allow your arguments to be, robust. Not just, feeling like you just said something because you have nothing better to say, but show that you have done your reading and that you're able to come back with, decent solutions and combine materials, combine resources, and come down to useful conclusions. Some students tend to ask me, right, okay, how many references do you want? I think there is not a single correct answer on that. Typically, I would say at least 20. You will need at least 20 in this kind of report, but some people need more. Another thing to say is that at least half of them have to be academic references. So research papers. That's what I mean when I say academic papers, academic resources. Does that make sense for you?
Yes.
Yeah, you're all familiar with all of that. Are you also all familiar with Harvard referencing system? I have it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a type of referencing. Yeah, there's nothing too advanced about it. It's just the style, whether you write first the name of the authors or the dates and things like that. There's nothing too particular about it. So use Harvard throughout. Keep in mind that references do not count on your word count. Your 3,000 words are only for your main text in your report. Then another thing is that I would like to encourage you to use graphs and tables and things like that throughout your work. And ideally, I will ask you to try and design your own stuff. So sometimes I know that's not doable, but when it is, when you can have access to actual data and produce your own graphs, I would say that this is a lot better than copy-pasting graphs in your reports. If you end up copy-pasting graphs, make sure that these are appropriate for what you want to say. So don't just go around somewhere, find 5 fancy graphs and throw them in there and try to make sense of them. Make sure what you want to say, figure that out first, and then consider how you will show that through a graph that either you have found already or that you will design from scratch. So that's quite important. I think I would value it a lot if you can use data directly and design your own stuff. The other thing is make sure you number all of your graphs and tables and you link them inside your report. You say table 1 and then mention it inside your report, table 2, table 3, or graph 1, graph 2, figure 1, figure 2, whatever you want it to be. Does it make sense? Are you comfortable with that? Yeah, hopefully yes. Generally speaking, make sure you avoid putting in, if you're going to be copy-pasting anything, please make sure that it doesn't look horribly pixelated and ugly. Have a little think when you see your report and consider for a minute, if you were working for a company, a job that you liked and you wanted to keep, would you be submitting that report to your boss? Or would you think, oh, this looks a bit rubbish? Yeah, does it look slick enough? Does it look professional enough? Or does it look sloppy and of a very low standard? Make sure that what you submit looks good. Because that is, another way of making sure that it's taken care of and it's professional enough. So the next one is, throughout your report, make sure you show a more holistic understanding of the issues surrounding renewable energy broadly. If you have read something about another country and a best practice from another country that you want to introduce to your country of choice, do it. Have a couple of lines there where you say that, for example, I think my country should implement that policy that has worked really well on that other country. Reference. It's an opportunity to reference with these things and explain that in this way. Yeah? So do not miss opportunities to demonstrate that you have a broader understanding of this sector and that you have done a broad reading. You will be getting extra points for these things. So these are my broader suggestions for your report. Final things are just make sure you email it to me by the deadline. That's the 6th, at the 6th hour. No, that's actually the 18th hour. So 6 in the afternoon, Italian time, on the 10th of December. And you email it to my UNIBO account. And you have to convert your file into a PDF format and that you name it like that. Surname, name, country, final report. Okay? Is that all clear to everyone?
Yes.
Do you all feel comfortable with all of these things?
Yes,
Are there any major questions at this point? I mean, I'm sure you will have questions as we go on. Yeah, as we build, each one will be working on building their own case, their own report. As you work on it, you will have questions, I'm sure. But I just want to make sure that at this, in the first instance, nothing sounds, too crazy or too difficult to understand or anything like that. Another thing I wanted to ask you, and that's because I received a couple of emails on that. Do you all understand me when I speak? Do I speak fast? Should I slow down? I don't know. Is there anything else I can do to make it easier for you to understand?
Everything is perfect. And if the students have problem, they can use the subtitle option in the Teams. I always use it. So when
what is that? Does Teams have a subtitles option?
Yeah, Teams has a subtitle option.
Really?
Yeah, in the top, beside of the emoji that's hands up, when you put on the more actions, there's an option that wrote turn on live captions. And
let me see that. Wow, it works.
Yeah, and I think if you use it when you are recording the class, I think it will be available on your recording. I'm not sure, but I think it should be available on your recording.
Okay. So I'm using it
but
now.
If you upload it to the Microsoft for UNIBO that we have, there is an option there too when students watching the videos again. For example, today the class is finished and they are going to watch it. There is an option again for the subtitle too. So the most important thing is just the accent.
Okay, can I check that? I mean, does that work for all of you?
I don't know. I turn on it for mine, but I don't know the others.
Yeah, no, I'm asking for generally. That's very useful. Thank you for letting me know. Does it work for others? Can you? Because I just turned it on for me, but probably that means that only I can see it. I'm not sure if the rest of you can see it.
I've just tried it and it's working.
Yeah, I'm relatively happy with how it translates. So with how it captions my stuff, at least. It doesn't look like it's making too many mistakes.
Yeah, it works, but I don't know. Sorry to draw us back. This might be a good time to also point out the fact that those of us that don't have access to this, to the chat of this call, we won't be able to have access to the recording as well. I don't know what we are going to do to remedy that.
Okay, for the recording, there is a link at the end where I can share it with you all, so that's not a problem. I think because I've done it with a few more students for the first class. So I'm not very worried about that.
Okay, that would be great.
I'm wondering about, so what we're using right now as a feature, the one that Mahdi has mentioned as a captions feature. For those of you that are struggling to maybe, I don't know, maybe if I speak too fast or something, that seems to work relatively well. So now as I speak, I see whatever I say is being typed automatically down there, which is kind of magic because it works perfectly well.
And Professor, if you see that, for example, one word is wrong, you can pronounce it again. So you will find out that, okay, the pronunciation has problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but it does look like it works relatively well. So I'm not very worried. Okay, so that's good. That's good. Thank you for letting me know about this one. I didn't know about this feature existing at all. Okay, so with that being said, is this now the right time to have a quick break and then come back for the rest of the slides? Should we do that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a break for say 20 minutes, and I'll see you all back at quarter to. What time is it there? Because we have a difference. 4:45, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Just an hour ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. See you in a bit then.